everyone, and welcome back to Proudly Asian. Before we begin today's episode, we want to let you know that this conversation includes mentions of death by suicide and potentially triggering content such as mentions of the recent tragedies in Hong Kong and Australia. So please take care while listening and step away if you need to. We're recording this episode following some incredibly difficult moments in the world, the tragic fire in Tai Po and the mass shooting in Bondi that have shaken people far beyond Hong Kong and Australia. In this episode, we will be talking about what mental health support can look like during and after crises, why access still remains a challenge, especially in Asian communities, and how we can better care for ourselves and each other when the unthinkable happens. Welcome to Proudly Asian, a podcast series that tells bold and proud stories of Asians by Asians. My name is Isabel, your podcast host, and I'm here to find stories that challenge biases we face every day. There's never just one way to look at Asians. This podcast will take you through a deep dive into the life stories, struggles, and triumphs of young Asians around the world. On today's episode, we have Heinok Fan, a yoga instructor and dentist who is on a mission to make movement and conversations about mental health more accessible. She talks to us about her own personal mental health experience related to anxiety and grief in the Asian context, as well as her thoughts on mental health support offered in Hong Kong, both during communal tragedies and in daily life. Hi, Heinok. Welcome to Proudly Asian. Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks for having me, Isabel.
And let's dive right in with an introduction about yourself. So our listeners and our viewers around the world will be able to get to know more about you. So every episode we ask this set of questions. So Heinok, tell us about your background. Who are you? What are you? And where did you grow up?
Hi, I'm Heinok. So when I introduce myself, it's like, hey, knock. So I guess everyone will now do that. I am a yoga instructor dentist, also looking into going into sustainability. But in regards for this episode, also wanted to highlight that I'm also a Mind Hong Kong ambassador, which is a mental health speaking position. And also I'm the new normal Move Partners lead. So I run the community movement partners and programs with this mental health charity called The New Normal here in Hong Kong.
Nice. I do know that you have quite a busy schedule every week because you have classes you have to host. So what's a day in your life like, or a week in your life?
Okay, so my husband would say girl doesn't stop. I go. I'm really trying to put buffer into my space. My day looks quite different just because I do have a variety of jobs and positions. So I think that's something that works well for me. Usually it's wake up, roll out of bed, brush my teeth because I'm a dentist, with fluoridated toothpaste, by the way. And then I would meditate for about 5 to 10 minutes, depending on time, have my breakfast, head out the door, go to work, either in the clinic or teach. And then I have gaps in between if I'm teaching. Usually just we'll sit in a coffee shop, do some admin or see friends or do my own exercise, like I gym today. And then if I'm in the clinic, I'm really there until, a regular 9:30 to 6:30 kind of schedule. Yeah. And then go home. Sometimes I teach an evening class with some private clients. If not, I go home and have dinner.
That sounds pretty fun. It's almost like you have no idea what your week is going to look like at any given time.
It's true. I don't have a regular Monday to Friday. I think that's different. So everyone's like, what are you doing today? And I'm like, how do I explain this to people? But it does look the same mostly. Week to week, I have regular classes. I go to the clinics on certain days. It's just sometimes in between there might be different things. So yeah, keeping it exciting and fresh, I guess. Nice.
So, I mean, I'm sure a lot of our listeners now will have the question for you, how did you end up doing so many different things, like wearing so many hats because you were trained as a dentist. And now, as you mentioned, you're a yoga instructor, you're a very active mental health advocate. So how did all these hats just come your way?
Oh, long story. Let's start from the very beginning. So I've always wanted to be in healthcare. I think innately, I've always wanted to help people. But from a very young age, I knew I didn't want to be a doctor, which is very specific because of like the high academic stress. Not saying any other job doesn't have that or any other program doesn't have that. And then I also didn't know how to deal with like the emotional announcements of like death of loved ones. And I think that ties in with, you know, taking care of other people's mental health and my own as well.
So you already had that insight very early
Yeah,
on.
like I think when I was in early high school. So actually at 15, I had an experience with my orthodontist. I actually had dental phobia because I was really scared of taking dental modes for my braces. And the first orthodontist I had, it was quite traumatic for me. And then she left. And then I got a new one. And she actually really turned my experience in the dental chair around like 180 degrees. I got really, really inspired by her at 15. And I was like, you know what? I want to be a dentist. And so at 15, I started shadowing all these other dentists that were referred through mutual connections. And I was like, yeah, pretty good life. Or like, you know, it looked really, really nice and like that, very rewarding in terms of helping people and gaining confidence when you restore their smile. That was literally what I wrote on my personal statement.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I kind of paved my way to go into dentistry at a very, very young age, thinking it was what I wanted wholly. And that was the way I wanted to help people. Moving forward, I got into dental school. I got into my first choice. The only trajectory that changed was I didn't end up studying abroad. I really just studied here. And that was a big cultural shock for me just because I think the education system is a little different to international schools. And then towards the last year of my dental training, I was like, because yoga has always been with me since I was also 15. And it was actually my mom who got us into yoga classes, more like stretching as a way to de-stress from academic stress from a young age. So it's always been there. And I think yoga was always there for me when I really felt quite stressed. So, you know, it's more quiet. You're really connecting to your body, your mind. You're not on your phone. You're not on your laptop. It's really just creating space to be with yourself. And so I really liked yoga. And so in my final year, I was like, I'm not going to work on Saturdays. Bit privileged, yes. But I'm going to take a full-time position at school as a dental officer, work there. And then on Saturday, I will go do teacher training and Sunday as well. So I did that. And that was literally when COVID hit. So I did my training. And in my last session, we actually had to wear a mask to teach. And it was my friend and I teaching that last session as our teaching practice.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that's how I got my 200. And then I also specialize in yin yoga, which is what I did before my 200 actually with someone who was a friend and a mentor at the time. She no longer teaches yoga, does other stuff, but it was like her last training. So I thought, okay, I have to go. So I did that. And so once I did my yoga training, I actually got hired by the studio that trained me. And so I already started teaching the moment I came out. So I've been teaching for 5 years, just over 5 years now. And it's been so rewarding. And I think I really enjoy teaching yoga to different group sizes because you can really see the benefits and people go, whoa, I've learned this about my body, or I can do this to take care of my body and my mind. And that to me is a huge reward. So I've been doing this since 2019, working as a dentist, doing yoga.
Well, you've been working 2 jobs for such a long time now.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because now it's more yoga than dentistry. So not really making use of my license very well. But I think the similarity is that there's really beneficial when you build empathy into both jobs. Yeah. And I think, you know, the last part of it is how do I get into the mental health scene or the mental health advocacy scene. So in 2020, I was training in a certain field and was going to go and become a specialist. Like that was training for specialty. I did a master's and I realized, I think, I didn't admit it at the time, but it wasn't what I wanted. But because people really saw potential and growth and my strengths in me, it fed into my people-pleasing tendencies. And I think then I projected it as, whoa, this is an opportunity on a silver platter. I'm learning from some of the best who see potential in me. I can't let them down. But then the mismatch was, I think deep down, it wasn't what I wanted. So it caused a lot of struggles mentally, which then dissipated into physical struggles that happened in my gut because my gut takes the first hit. And, the body keeps score. So it became to a point where it affected my appetite. And, in Asian culture, food is a love language. And to me, food was my love language. So I think that was an indicator. It was like, I see food, I want to eat it, but I can't eat it. And it got to the point where I was running on bananas and coffee. That was my diet. And then one day I just threw it all up before clinic started. And I was like, that's not okay. This is not good for me. So then I took a break. And I think that was kind of the intersection mainly. That was one reason. So that was more related to anxiety, depression, and my own mental health and my mental health struggles. And so I ended up seeing a professional who helped me through it. And the decision was I actually left the program in the end. So from that, at the same time, I actually had applied to Mine Hong Kong to be one of their ambassadors in their first training batch, actually. But then I was going through Crises, and I called the manager of that program. And I was like, hey, I've actually signed up. I got accepted into the training program to learn how to storytell my own lived experience with mental health struggles in a better way. But I'm going through this crisis. What should I do? And she was super good and helpful and supportive. And she was like, you know what? Take a step back. Handle your situation first. Take care of yourself. And when you're ready, you can always jump onto another batch. So I did. And I sat out the first training batch, took care of myself, got professional help. And I want to preface this and say that I'm very lucky that my family, my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, and my friends were very, very supportive. I think my health was always the priority and everything else was secondary. And even school, the people who were in the master's program, the teachers were very take a sabbatical, take a break, not a sabbatical, take a pause. And if you feel ready and you want to come back, we'll put you back into the program. You just make up for it. Even though I didn't do that, but I think I was very lucky in that sense. So I managed to recover from that situation, I think, as best as I could. And then I went into the second training batch and learned how to brush up my storytelling skills so I could share this experience with others. And then what's the other two things? Oh yeah, the new normal that came along later in 2023. I had met the founder and director, Jess Hulton, through a mutual friend. Actually, the impact lead called Desiree. Her name's Desiree. And we all met. It was very nice. And I told her my situation was I had a lot of people come in and be like, I can't touch my toes in yoga. I'm really scared of doing yoga. I'm inflexible. I can't do it. I'm a man. And I think those things were quite off-putting. I never want yoga to be inaccessible. Yoga should be accessible for everyone. Everyone can do it in their daily lives. You can practice it whether it's physical or non-physical. And so I was like, hey, I want to do this type of yoga, make it as accessible as possible from a social perspective, from a gender perspective, from a race perspective, from a language perspective, and a financial perspective. Can we do that? And then so she super open on board. And then we started to run these donation-based or sliding scale classes where people could pay a certain amount depending on their financial situation. And just come, and we would give them options. And we did that weekly for a while, and then we moved it to bi-weekly, and then now it's monthly. But it's been running for nearly 3 years now. So
wow.
Yeah, and we have a lot of partners who have just joined as well, not me finding them, but it's more hi, I want to do this. People who co-teach with me or co-host, or people really running their own programs. And it's expanded so much in the last quarter that it's very rewarding to see. And I think it's also so wonderful to see that people care about our community that's bigger. So that's how it kind of all happened. And that's how I became the Move Partners lead. Sorry, that's a super long story, but
no, I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Like, thank you so much for sharing such a personal story with us. I mean, obviously it sounded quite a journey for you, but what really stood out to me was that, you know, your journey into mental health, obviously you always had that intention, you know, learning more about the space, but then how you ended up with all these hats was also a journey trying to understand your own experience, right? It wasn't about, you know, trying to get out there, be more visible, but it was kind of like motivated by how you wanted to learn how to share your own experience with other people. And in a way, you sort of created this representation that kind of wasn't there for you before.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that for sure. And the other thing I didn't really drop was that actually my first experience with therapy was when I was in my 4th year of university. So, you know, that 2016 trend that's happening right now today.
Right now, as of today.
The 10-year thing, I was thinking, what was I doing in 2016? But 2016 wasn't a great year for me. I think a lot of things happened at home that was quite shocking. So, for example, I had a loved one who had died by suicide in that year, and it was the first loss in the immediate family, and I think that was a big shock to me. So I'm someone who really likes control, and I felt very out of control because I didn't have any questions or answers, and I felt a lot of guilt. And actually, it was at home where they were like, "Hey, why don't you try therapy?" And they're like, "We'll drive you to the school counseling center, and you try a session. And if you think it's helpful, you can stay. And if you don't, you can stop. It's up to you."
So
I'm
that
very
was the
thankful.
first time you had therapy.
Yeah. I mean, like, it was not on my radar, but my parents were like, "Hey, why don't you try it and see?" Because, you know, they are professionals. They may be able to give you tools that are helpful. And so I was like, okay, let's just do it. And since then, I've had a therapist pretty much on and off who works with me. And I personally prefer that. There are many different types of therapy, but one-on-one therapy works for me quite well. So
yeah. I mean, what also stood out to me was that when you were describing your experience, for you personally, it didn't seem like you were shying away from talking about the problems that you were experiencing at the time. Like it sounded like you were quite vocal about what you were experiencing with your loved ones, with your parents, and also with partners that you might be working with. For example, the Mind Hong Kong program, right?
Yeah.
Right. Like you actually communicated with them about what you were experiencing. So my question is that I do know that people who grew up in Asian cultures or households, they might find it hard to actually initiate that talk or tell people about the problems that they're having. So why was it kind of not really an issue for you?
Oh, that's a loaded question.
I'm sorry.
No. I think there's a lot of factors because in an Asian household, I think in Asian culture, we don't want to load a lot of pressure or problems onto other people. It's like, do it yourself, you know, like it's maybe a guilt thing.
Asking for help is hard.
Asking for help is hard. I don't think that comes naturally in our culture. That's why I prefaced it and said my family is very supportive.
And
my
they're
parents
quite resourceful as well.
Yeah, I mean, they were like, try school. So thank you, school. But my parents, I don't know, maybe it was their kind of mindset or the things that they had gone through. I mean, like generationally as well, there is obviously a difference, different priorities, you know, different needs that we need in our daily life. And so my parents, I think their difference was they always put our health first. I think that's kind of uncommon too. Like I was just talking about it today and I was like, my parents never needed me to get good grades in school. They were like, why are you working so hard? Or like,
Wow.
yeah, they're like, why are you studying so hard? Go outside and go take a walk, or like go
We
play
need
some
them on the
sport.
show.
Yeah, you can ask them why they do that. But it was always like that. So they always like prioritized our health first. Like, I mean, it was my mom who got me into yoga as well. So I think also I did grow up in the US for 4 years as a kid, from 4 to 8. And I think maybe that's why my mindset or my viewpoints are a little bit different, because my early developmental years were in the US. My mom actually grew up here completely. Like, her whole education system is in Hong Kong, from a big family. And then my dad is also from a medium-sized family, but he did some schooling in the UK. I'm not sure if that is much better, to be honest, because, you know, they don't really talk about mental health in the UK scene, especially back then. I mean, now I think there is
Only recently they
yeah.
had a campaign called "Okay to Say" or something.
Yeah. So, I honestly, I think I'm lucky that I have parents who are like that, you know, who are supportive, and you know, honestly, there's sometimes they're like, we don't know how to help you, we don't have the tools, but we're happy to hear and see what we can do. And do they support like the best way they can, like a professional? No, because they're not professionals, but at least they're open to having these conversations, or they're willing to learn. And I think that is the best thing you can get from people around you who support you. It's being open, being curious, building that empathy, and having those non-judgmental conversations where, hey, it may go against what you're used to or what you're conditioned to believe, and rather challenge them or think, hey, this is a different perspective as well.
Wow. I mean, I do think it is a privilege to be surrounded by loved ones who are so open-minded, because I guess for some of our previous guests who also kindly shared about the mental health journeys and experiences on the show, I remember one of the guests mentioned how her parents basically denied her access to any mental health support because of that mindset. Like, she was mentioning her dad was saying like, oh, if you allow you to go see a psychiatrist, it means I'm admitting that you're sick, like you have issues. Like, if you were to take antidepressant, it means you're sick. So like, I can tell a lot of our, I mean, a lot of the older generation Asian parents, they would have that mindset. They would really try to hide, you know, when there are problems or issues, right? They would hide it. Like, you don't show it to the world. I mean, that's so unfortunate as well, though, because there's nothing wrong with taking antidepressants, to be honest. Like, I'll tell you, I took them when I left my master's because my depression was diagnosed as mild to moderate, and for me that was a recalibration. Also, just check with professionals before you do them, from a health standpoint. Absolutely.
Because also the reaction can be quite different. Like, I had people who were prescribed antidepressants or anti-anxiolytic medication, and their body just did not take it well, and they readjusted and something better. So I was quite lucky. I just felt quite sleepy, so that was good with my sleep, actually, because I wasn't sleeping very well. And so that was helpful in kind of recalibrating like my anxiety and my mood. And I took them for about a year. And then I stopped because I was assessed that it's okay. I think you're in a state where you can use non-pharmacological conditions in a more, you know, relaxed state. And so the other thing I was going to say, which is so funny, is because you said people don't want to go to psychiatrists, or they don't want their kids to go to psychiatrists, is because there's medication. So if you take medication, you're sick. It ties in a lot with culture. I don't think it's just from a medication standpoint. It's also the language and the culture we use as well. So a lot of times when you talk about psychiatry terms, I was actually discussing this with my husband yesterday, and I was like, is it just Chinese? But actually in English as well, there's a lot of terms which make mental health conditions. I'm using the word conditions because a lot of times in English we use disorders or diseases or illnesses, which already frames it in a state where it needs to be fixed, that it's wrong, it's incorrect. But it's how do you reframe the language? Like in Chinese, you have 西有沙条, you have 丑话精, I hope I'm saying this right, which a lot of it is related to imbalance, or it's related to disorders, illness, sickness, something that needs to be fixed, that they're not normal functioning human beings, but they are. It's more in the mind, I think. How do we work with it that it works in our life, right? They're humans too. They're people too. And the language we use around it, yes, okay, from a historical background, right? Like schizophrenia, it's actually fragmented thinking, but a lot of people call it split personality. But that's not just the only symptom that comes out of schizophrenia. So it's destigmatizing and re-educating the community to better, I think, understand these conditions and mental health terms, that, you know, that we understand it better, and that we're trying to be curious and learn as well. And the other last point I had in my mind was that you just mentioned psychiatrists. Actually, in Hong Kong, psychiatrists are cheaper than psychologists by like 3 times, because people don't want to be on medication. So they'll go see a psychologist, but there's not that many psychologists, so they raise their rates. So it's interesting, I think, from a demand and supply factor that ties in with mental health situation in Hong Kong.
I mean, in terms of, because for this episode, I also wanted to talk about access, right? Access to mental health services. I mean, just a quick question on that. Like, is the access different? Like, is it easier to access psychologists in Hong Kong? Or like, what's the pathway to access psychiatrists?
So I think in every society, you have public, private, and you also have charities or NGOs here. So the public system is like most public health systems. I think in Hong Kong, we're actually quite good in public health or public health services. But the issue is because you have so many patients, but not enough psychiatrists or clinical psychologists in hospitals, that the waiting time is very, very long. That's the first thing. I don't know, to be honest, what the waiting time is. In the UK, it can be up to like 8 months if it's a crisis, which is scary, right? And so you are in the waiting list. And then the way they book an appointment for you is a 5-minute appointment. So this is a big issue in the systems where I feel governments have to reflect on, is that how are we, you know, because we have such a load of people who need or want that help from the public system, but you don't have enough psychiatrists in the system, you're overworking them, number one, and number two, you're limiting the time. So what happens in the 5 minutes, it's very like Q&A. You take history, you say some words, and then you give them medication. And that's what happens. It's a loop. But that's, I'm not going to blame the psychiatrist for doing that, because I think it's fundamentally a systemic problem that I'm honestly not sure how to fix, but I hope, you know, the hospital authorities and the public health sector can find ways that are better. And then you have private healthcare, which is more accessible in terms of like finding someone, but the difference is the price point. So it can get quite expensive in Hong Kong. Like there are places like NGOs that do sliding scale, but they've quoted 800 and up, which I don't think it's necessarily the cheapest, right? Not everybody can afford to have $800 per session with someone who could be just freshly graduated every week if you're in crisis as well. So financially, that's very difficult. And then you have more different private sectors like private clinics, private hospitals as well, which come at a different price point. So again, it depends on your background. But I think what's nice, and you're starting to see it here in Hong Kong, is that you're starting to have low cost or even free support groups, which is another form of therapy, which I wanted to touch on. So for example, with Mine Hong Kong, you have the IAC program where they train people in social work or in the mental health scene or with backgrounds in psychology, psychiatry, to provide sessions. I think it's a certain amount of sessions that they provide for people who are looking for professional help. And it's an intervention. I think it's a space between from going to no help to getting professional help, and it's just a recalibration. So that's one. Another group that's great is the New Normal charity here in Hong Kong, and they actually started off with grief support groups in the UK actually. So it was actually started by two British men,
Right.
barber and his client. And so they started that in the UK, brought it, and then one of their attendees moved to Hong Kong, and it's Jess, and then she started it here. And they started offering only English first, and then they expanded it, and then there were Chinese and English support groups. They moved it and expanded it to have different topics for conversation. So example, there was good grief, which is the main one. Then they have complicated grief, which is about grief that's a little more complicated in terms of maybe from a family perspective. And then they also have something called Healing Hearts, which is based on relationships or breakups or divorces. And then eventually they moved it to just overall mental health in Cantonese and English. So it's called Ho Sam Ting in Chinese. And they've also expanded it to about unemployment as well. They had a cancer-related support group as well for a period. And then they also have LGBTQIA plus support groups. And then now they've just launched their Cantonese support group on grief as well. And I think there's more to that. I'm just highlighting that because I work closely with them. But I think what we see is people actually come to these things. Like, it's scary to talk about it, especially in front of a group of strangers that you might not ever see again, or you'll see at these support groups if they find it helpful. But people show up, people sign up, and they just want a space to feel heard and seen. And even if they don't talk, at least they're with someone else. They don't feel as lonely.
True. It might actually be easier to talk to strangers about the problems than, people who know them.
Exactly, because they don't know these people. Like you said, it's like they're going in and I'm going to tell you what I'm going through, and it might be a lot, but at least hopefully you understand or you're with me in this time point.
It helps a lot to know that you're not the only person going through hardship.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of leaning on each other for support. Like, yes, you are sitting in a chair. You're not going to physically lean on them, but I think it's nice. And there's more. There's like other charities. There's a lot of hotlines actually. I mean, in terms of crisis, there are the emergency hotlines, but there's also like other hotlines as well that can offer support. So I think in Hong Kong, the scene is growing. I want to commend that, because before, like 2016, you're not going to talk about this stuff. Like, it is taboo. No one would talk to me about suicide, right? Like suicide bereavement. Where would I go? But I was lucky that I had the school. So I think it's good to see there's progression. Even if it's slow, there is progression through it. And the other thing I was going to say is there's more and more, we have a lot of ambassadors at Mind Hong Kong now. Like, I'm old in Mind Hong Kong, okay? But it's great. Like, I see they do a lot of panels, and there's so many other charities or NGOs like Mind the Waves that talk with young athletes about their mental health. So there's like more specific groups and communities that are popping up and having conversations about mental health. And I think that's great to see. I mean, yes, we do have a lot of work to do, but hey, there's progression as well.
It's good to see there's a positive sign that the infrastructure is on its way. We're not quite there yet, but there are many people, communities and NGOs, like you said, building out that infrastructure for mental health services access in Hong Kong. And it's quite encouraging to hear how there's also recognition in terms of the variety of mental health services needed, because like you mentioned, right, it's like organized by, age groups, different topics, different communities, LGBTQ plus, as opposed to maybe back in the day, maybe 10 to 15 years ago, people would just think like, oh, mental health is just one thing, right? But then it could be rooted in a lot of different issues, and they would require a lot of different specialists, or even like language, like you mentioned, cultural backgrounds. They mean something. Like be able to have access to therapists or professionals who are maybe from similar cultural backgrounds, who might be able to understand some of the cultural norms a lot better. But going back to mental health services access in emergencies, right? Because that's the theme of World Mental Health Day back in October 2025. And since then, the world has gone through some really heavy moments. For example, the tragic fire in Tai Po in Hong Kong. And almost the end of the year, right before holiday season, we also saw the mass shooting in Bondi. These are all crises and emergencies that would leave impact way beyond, loss of lives. So I think sometimes the world, that's also kind of the moment when the world, or like Hong Kong as a community, realized that, maybe there's a bit of lack in terms of access to services that would be needed to cope with the consequences of these tragedies that were way beyond casualties. Because I can imagine, for family members who survived the fire, it must be quite a lot on them, mentally, financially as well. So I'm just wondering, I think you were also doing a bit of work, or you were kind of connected with people who were offering help at the time, right? So for your own experience, what did you see these people would need, and were they able to get the help that they needed?
Yeah, it was really, really sad. I think it's quite difficult to talk about.
Yeah.
I don't know anyone personally. So I know someone's family who was affected by it. I didn't find out about this until quite recently. But I think what happened in the moment is because I was seeing this from afar. Like most people were in Hong Kong, through the news, getting updates, and it went overnight, right? From a Wednesday to a Thursday. And so when I woke up, I was like, whoa, it's still going. And it's shocking because it's a man-made disaster. Oh yeah, I'm wearing bamboo earrings for this. Because, the art of bamboo scaffoldings for construction is a very Hong Kong thing. And the issue that is suspected to have caused the fires is the meshing that didn't pass safety standards, plastic meshings. And so that caught on fire, and it just went very, very fast, as well, like the Grenfell situation years ago. And so I think what happened immediately is it's very Hong Konger mentality, 香港精神, I would say, is that we really want to help. We care about Hong Kongers. We look out for each other. So the moment that happened, it was an overwhelmingly amount of information that was going everywhere. It was great in terms of support. We had an overwhelming amount of resources that were getting sent to community centers, or people were going into Tai Po. And so I think a lot of people, a lot of the news also came from Chinese news platforms as well, very different to the English news platforms. So I think a lot of people were I don't know what to do because there's a news overload, right? And I was oh my God, news overload. So I was trying to get real-time information as best as I can, reading Chinese, trying to translate it into English so people through my platform could see. And I think while I was doing this, actually Jess from The New Normal reached out to me and was hey, I want to put together a doc, seeing how we can support Tai Po without overwhelming the systems. I see you're starting it already. Do you want to do it? So in the span of 2 hours, by the way, I just went from PT, I was gymming, and then I was walking on the streets with my phone like this and typing at the same time. And my husband's please watch yourself when you're crossing the roads while you're doing that. And I was we need to get this out ASAP. So we were typing, and then I was actually at a massage, which was pre-booked. And I was I need to do this. So my masseuse was it's fine. Just lie face up and do your work. So I'm just doing my massage and doing this. And at the time I think I went straight into the immediate response action mode. My reaction was help, do the work, and get that information out there. And then we had another volunteer who joined on board, and she did the Chinese translation. So we wanted to put this out there in bilingual, but have infographics that were verified by people in Tai Po, but also what we were reading on the news, so it would be cleaner, easier to read. And the moment we posted that, a lot of people were thank you. We are feeling overwhelmed by the news, which can affect your mental health. And so they were it's very helpful, so we know how to help without feeling stuck or overwhelmed or guilty.
So what was the document that you were putting together?
Oh, it was an infographic, 10 slides on Instagram through the new normal page. And I think at the same time, the board was figuring out what they would do and how could they provide, like you said, long-term support, because it's not just the immediate, it's not the impact, it's the resonance, it's the ripples that come from the impact, it's long-term trauma that comes for it. So I think as someone who also responded and the reaction was, let's do it, let's go, go, go. But at the same time, how do we not overwhelm the systems, the emergency services, the firefighters, the medical, like ambulances? How do we not jeopardize the help that's going in already, but play our part? And at the same time, you feel really bad and guilty because you're away and you're like, oh, I can't do anything from afar, but what can I do? So you want to give resources, give blood, give your time, your volunteer time, but literally systems are jammed. Like you would call community centers and then they can't pick up, or they're like, hi, we don't need any more supplies.
Because you want to help, but you're also getting in the way of people who are actually helping.
Yes, and I think it's great that we all showed up. But I think what I felt on a personal level is, so I actually was away for a wedding that weekend after, and I felt quite bad. But it was like, I was away for happy reasons, but at home it was still that. And I had to learn to kind of draw that boundary and be like, I'm okay. I'm human too. And I have that right and that space to feel joy for family reasons, whilst playing my part as a Hong Konger while I can. And I think that's setting the boundaries, or like just being human in a way.
That is so true, because I remember at the time, I've seen some celebrities or people who might have a bit of following on social media getting shamed for being like, how dare you pushing out your usual content? Like, don't you know there's a tragedy happening in the city? Like, I think it's actually really, it's hard because, I mean, where do you set the boundaries, right? Like, can you, I mean, it's bad that there's a tragedy going on, but then your life still goes on and you're not gonna pause everything because there's a tragedy going on in the world.
It's hard. I think we do need to give it attention, and sometimes I think we're not always going to be posting about it. And I think as long as you're reading, you're aware of it, and you're taking the actions that are within your capacity, I think you're doing, your role in a lot already.
That's so true, because social media kind of makes people think that if you're not posting about it, you don't care.
I think, it's that fine balance to have. And sometimes when you read the news, a way to take care of your own mental health, and in the World Mental Health Day for 2005, the guidelines on getting access to mental health services in times of emergencies and crises, one of the things to take care of your own mental health is actually to put those boundaries in place with the news, with information, because an overload of information sometimes can cause yourself stress. And whilst you're taking care of other people's mental health too, you have to take care of your own. I think that's within your control. What's happening outside the tragedy, yes, it's hard because you want to play a role, but sometimes it's out of your control. And I think I felt a lot afterwards. So I actually went to the memorial site that they built 7 days after the event. So it's in commemoration of the people who had died because of the fires. And so when I went after work, it was the day after I came back from the trip, it hit like a brick, like a wall. Like I was like, whoa, like the emotions, it was so surreal. Like you're just looking at the buildings, and it hit me all at once, and I like cried like a lot. Like it was very heavy. And I think that was the delayed emotional response. And I think that ties in, like, it's not just the response or the emotions, whether you're the victim, the victim's family, service workers, or you have connections, or you're just a Hong Konger, or actually a global citizen, I might say. It can come in waves. Like the effect of the emotions can hit you anytime. And that's why I think access to services, like you said, it's essential that we have these long-term support, whether it's through our government systems, our public systems. Like it was great. We have those 24-hour support hotlines that also were offered long-term. And it's for organizations, clinics, communities, charities to offer these spaces to share, because it will ripple. It is kind of like generational trauma. It trickles down and it's there. And if we don't have that space to talk about it for people who want to talk about it, or at least feel seen, heard, and supported, that's going to be a systemic issue as well.
Yeah, for the tragic Tai Po fire, you mentioned the overwhelm of resources and help at the time, right? And I mean, it's just a reminder, even to this day, the surviving family members are still dealing with the consequences, the impact of the tragedy. And I guess for those who would like to help, now might be the best time for them to start reaching out and see how they can help, because maybe there's a chance that the world has moved on and the initial abundance of resources and donation might be drying out as well. But then these survivors are still dealing with the long-term consequences that will take years. I don't ever know if they're ever going to recover from this, but then it will be years that they will be dealing with these consequences. But then just now we talked about, how overwhelming crisis and emergency could be. And I would like to ask for some practical tips in terms of the first step that we could take to protect and take care of our mental health when crises and emergencies hit, right? And I could imagine that could be split into two different groups, and they might need different tips, right? The first group would be the victims, the people who are directly impacted by the incidents or the tragedies. And group number two would be maybe the wider community, the people who are watching how the tragedies are unfolding on the news, the witnesses. It does weigh on them as well.
Yeah. I think let's start with like the victims, loved ones of victims, survivors. I think that's very difficult to talk about or like say it from their perspective, because I don't know it firsthand. I'm going to be very honest. And I think it's going to come from them when they feel they're ready to talk about it from this traumatic experience. It is a catastrophe. It's a crisis. It's an emergency. It's not something that happens from day to day. It's shock. It is whiplash from the shock. And so I think the best thing we can do is to be empathetic, to hold that space, and to have those non-judgmental conversations if victims, survivors want to talk or they're looking to talk. There are a lot of resources out there, and I think just from human to human, it's being honest and vulnerable. It's saying, hey, I honestly don't know what you're going through, but I want to be there for you. And I'm here happy to be with you or to listen to you, to hold that space for you. So they don't feel that they're judged in any way. And it can be a lot. And sometimes they may need that room or space to unpack what they've experienced. And if they do need help, there's a lot out there. There are hotlines, like I mentioned, a lot of charity groups. There are social workers, loved one family members as well. And the impact may not just be due to loss of a life. There's also, from what I know, some people have lost their homes. They have lost precious items that have sentimental value that they can never get back, like photos, videos from childhood until now. And that's something that can mean a lot, I think, to people as well. It's not just perhaps the human type of loss, but it's also those sentimental losses as well. And it's very difficult. I don't have that answer, I would say, but I think I just want people to know, if you're watching, someone who may need help, please do know there's a lot of help out there. If you search on Google, there's a lot of people who are willing to help, and they just might not know how to help, but they're always there. There's always humans, good humans, and manpower out there. And if you have any other suggestions, especially if you're someone who's immediately impacted and you want to share, please do write it in the comments, because I think it would mean a lot for other people who are watching from the outside to know how to help as well. I think it's easier for me to kind of also share as someone on the outside who's watching and witnessing, especially like with the Tai Po Wrongful Court fires or with the mass shooting in Bondi. I think the first thing is to really check in with people, your loved ones, people who are affected, also people who are working the grounds. I think something that some of us, I think we did quite well, like in the sense that we checked in, people were giving energy gels to the firefighters and checking in, and that's more of like physical help, but like mentally also check in with people who were working on the grounds in the hospitals, running extra shifts. Like I had friends who work in accidents and emergencies, not directly at Princess of Wales Hospital, but they went in earlier, they would leave later to help out because it was just more people going in because of the burns or because of the fires. But otherwise, I think the other thing, like you said, we're watching the news, we're consuming the news. And I think something that sometimes you have to do, even if you feel guilty, is to remove yourself from the news or take a break, turn it off. Watching the news before bed is also not great for your sleep. Happened a lot with me. I was sleeping at like 1, 2 during that time. But I think it's giving yourself that space and permission to be like, hey, I need to take a pause and a breather, and I can get back into it tomorrow, or just to have that space and that boundary. Because like I said, you do have that human privilege and right to have that space to pause. And I think that's one thing. It's like, how much news do we consume? Because now it's not just TV anymore. It's not just the radio. It's social media. It's at the palm of your hand, right? There's a lot of tips, actually. I think when we go back, there'll be also a link as to the tools and tips as to how you can take care of your own mental health.
We'll link that in the
at
episode
the
description.
Yeah,
so
check
share
it
it
out
across our social media as well.
Yeah, it's a very nice graphic that was made by the for World Mental Health Day 2025 in relations to mental health, taking care of your mental health in catastrophes and emergencies. So apart from setting the boundaries, like I said, really taking care of yourself. It's being gentle and kind with yourself. I think that's a basic. It's how you would treat other people, or how you would like to be treated as well. So just being kind, giving yourself the permission to rest and digest. And then really comes down to what you like. Personally, I find doing some exercises you can do by yourself, like grounding exercises, doing things you like. Some people like to, what do you like to do, Isabel?
Ooh,
sorry, throwing a question back at you.
I do find staying active quite effective, despite my mind and my body would always try to lead me to believe otherwise.
Oh, okay.
You know, like when I feel a bit, a bit crap, like my body and my mind would always be like, well, maybe you just want to stay in, you just want to do nothing and binge a show or something.
Yeah.
But I never feel better after doing that. But then one thing I found, like I think in the past few years especially, like one way to really, when I feel a lot of tension in my body, a lot of stress in my body, if I just go to the gym or if I just go for a Pilates session, I feel much better after.
No, that's fantastic. I mean, great self-awareness. I'm the same. Like, I think for me, movement and breath work is very helpful. So like when I can move, I just jiggle. I'll do some yoga stretches. I mean, I do yoga. I like Pilates too. I'm going to be honest. I love Pilates. And just moving or being outdoors for me is something that's very helpful. So if you, like, another thing is you can take yourself outdoors, maybe find a spot to sit or go for a walk. Sometimes just being in nature has shown that it does make you feel more relaxed. Movement, exercise increases your serotonin, so lightens your mood. So there is research behind it. I'm not just talking fluff. And also I think it's for yourself. I find grounding exercise is quite helpful, or breath work. We can do one later after I finish this list.
Let's do that. I gotta say 10 years ago, 2016 me.
Yeah.
I would never be able to breathe.
Really? Oh, me too, actually. I mean, that
like
was an anxious year.
People would tell me, a very effective way to de-stress would be to do, to breathe, do deep breaths. I think 10 years ago, I'd be like, what does that mean?
Yeah. I think it's how do
I would
you
try to like,
yeah. So when I was I led a training for the volunteers at the New Normal, and we went through some breathwork exercises, and then some of them they're like, yo, why is like the inhale so short and the hold, like the retention of the breath so long? It's like I can't breathe. And I was like, you know what, there's many different ones, so we'll do one that's a little more simple. Hopefully you can do it anywhere. Honestly, you can do it. I tell people, and I've also used to do this, like I would go to the back of the clinic and I would be like, oh my God, I need to breathe. And so I will do this exercise just to calm my mind, activate my parasympathetic system, so my calm and digest system.
yeah.
So I don't panic as much. And I think there's a lot of things that are out of your control. I think that's where things start to amp up in terms of when you're having a mental health crisis or a struggle. It's because you feel like you're losing control. And that lack of control is something sometimes you cannot control. But the thing you can control is your breath. And so breath work, I think personally, is very effective. If we can keep it simple, it makes it more accessible. So we can try it now if you'd like.
Do that.
Yeah, let's do it. So I like to place one hand on top of my chest and one hand on top of my belly. Doesn't matter which one. Just find a comfortable seat. You can also do this lying down, standing, squatting, whatever you like. And then you can just have both your feet planted on the ground since we're sitting. So it just has a sense of grounding for your feet, that you're supported by the ground. And then from there, if you feel comfortable, you can close your eyes or just look towards the ground. And you just feel your heartbeat, your body. In times of when you're feeling anxious, you may feel your heartbeat racing, going up and down quite fast. And you're just taking note. This is just the body scan, seeing if there's any areas of tension. And you just keep your normal breath. Now, to activate the parasympathetic system, you want to keep the exhale longer. So what we're going to do is we're going to inhale in for 4 counts, just feeling your hands puff away from your chest and your belly, your spine. So that's just like ballooning up for 4 counts. And then as you exhale, you allow your hands, your body, your chest, top of the belly to soften for 6 counts. So we'll do it together. I've got you. Okay, so you're going to inhale in normally first, fully. Let your chest, belly fill up. And exhale out through your mouth. Let it go. And then you're going to inhale in. 2, 3, 4. And exhale out through your nose or your mouth. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale in. 2, 3, 4. Exhale out. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. One more time. Inhale in. Exhale out through your nose or your mouth. And then you can release your hands, come back to your normal breath. See how you feel. How are you feeling?
That was lovely.
Yeah, and I personally like the 4-6 breath. You can actually make the exhale longer. I just think when you remove the retention of the breath, it seems a little simpler and not as scary, because people, when they hold their breath, they're like, I can't breathe.
Yeah.
But with that, it's just nice because when you're exhaling longer and you're controlling that breath, it just gives you that space to like pause and to slow down. So that's just a grounding exercise I find. There's a lot. You can go look on the internet, AI. There's also on the resources, they do list a few more. Some of them are breath work exercises. Some of them are more like noticing your physical surrounding kind of exercises, really just to bring you back to the present. And I think the last thing I want to say is like, make sure you know that there are people out there you can talk to and you can reach out to at any time. I think people are very happy to listen, more than willing to, even if they may not fully understand the situation. So yeah, remember that you're not alone.
I really appreciate it, Heinok. I mean, I know initially I had more questions for you, but then before we go to rapid fires, I'll just have, one more question for you, because we talked a lot about accessing mental health services in the context of Asian cultures, right? I'm just wondering, like, from your experience, being connected with the community that's so active in this space, what kind of support systems and initiatives that you have seen elsewhere in Asia or globally that you think work really well that could be added to the infrastructure of mental health support in any society or communities?
Yeah, I think it's good that in our generation, we are caring more about each other's mental health. So I think you're starting to see in workplaces, they implement insurance for therapy or getting mental health support, which is very good. There are also some places like in Australia where you get sick leave or you get mental health day leaves where you can take care of your own mental health. So I think that'd be nice to see in Asian companies. So please do think about it.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is there are a lot of companies that are looking for training, whether it's in mental health first aid or suicide first aid training. And I think these companies are putting priority there and trying to educate their employees into how to take care of their own mental health, but also other people's mental health. And I think that's so important. I think the basis of destigmatizing mental health myths or misconceptions come from prevention and education. I think that's the basis of healthcare, where we learn, I think, implementing them in schools. There are some schools which are also implementing character building or mental health education into their system. So if we start it young and we normalize having these conversations at an early age, then aren't we building a society that's more open to have these conversations and accept everyone for who they are? I think that's something I hope to see more of in a Asian culture, especially in terms of how we talk about it or the language or the lens we see it through, because it seems that even though we are making efforts to have panels, exhibition, talks, resources, support groups, from the funding systemic perspective, we have those resources, we have that availability, but we're just not doing it enough.
Yeah, we just need to direct the resources to where resources are needed. And I mean, absolutely, I think, what we just talked about, like, we have to raise awareness, which is something that we have been talking about for a very long time, right? To encourage people to talk about the problems, but at the same time, because of maybe how, especially in Asian societies, like how the cultures are, currently it's still really hard for people to talk about that. Like, either people do not have the language or vocabularies for that. For example, for Japanese society, I learned from one of our previous guests that, like, they have very limited vocabularies to describe their emotions. And then for some reason, maybe some of her Japanese friends would find talking about the emotions in English, which they are not native in, a lot easier than talking about the emotions in Japanese. So I do think there's a lot of work that is still needed to encourage people to talk about it. Because first of all, I think for a lot of people, naming the problems, asking for help, talking about what they're going through are still very hard.
Yeah.
How do we normalize that? And then also the other bracket, I think, would be to normalize this behavior across different age groups, people who speak different languages. Like, it's not just, I feel like sometimes in Hong Kong or in some Asian societies, they would think, well, mental health is something that maybe people who had more Western influence would care more about. Like, it's only for English speakers or expats. But I think in the next phase of opening up access to mental health services, letting people know that mental health services could support people who speak all sorts of languages should be a big theme. But this is just my opinion.
No, I absolutely agree with you. I don't know much about other cultures, but I do know it's hard, like the vocabulary. So in Japanese, maybe you don't have as many words to describe an exact feeling. They use a lot of concepts. I feel like ichigo ichie, like that's yakea boy. So like it's like you have one splitting moment and you'll never get that splitting moment again. It's very beautiful, but maybe they don't have enough vocabulary to describe a certain emotion, or an emotion that the culture doesn't really want to talk about. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
Drop your comments.
It's interesting. I mean, just an observation, right? For a
Yeah.
lot of like, for the wellness industry,
Yeah.
there are a lot of like Japanese concepts, but unfortunately, you know, Japan as a society
Yeah.
might have one of the highest suicide rates.
Yeah, it's true. It's
out
true.
there.
Yeah.
So they're not necessarily well.
Yeah, I think a lot of different cultures will have their challenges. I never really thought about it, I think, from a Chinese perspective until I became an ambassador at Mind Hong Kong. And then we were on a call talking about how to curate the Chinese training program for Mind Hong Kong ambassadors, because at the time there was only English. And I was very interested because my Chinese is not great. But there are a lot of people who are very experienced, like local Hong Kong ambassadors, and they were talking about it. And actually in Chinese, a lot of the terms can give off very strong negative connotations. Like the word stigma itself can be like wuming, which means to dirtify, like the term or the concept. And so they were arguing back and forth about what word to use. And I was like, wow. So in Chinese culture, I think we have a lot of words to describe emotions, but sometimes perhaps the words can give off a misconception that it's wrong, or that there's an issue with it that needs to be fixed, or there's an imbalance that can be corrected. And that's not the case, right? We're not trying to correct people. We're supposed to accept people for who they are.
Yeah.
And it's part of their identity, and that's what we are as human beings. So I do agree with you. I think it's how do we educate from a very early age and teach the next generation and the generations to come, but also reframe our mindset and redefine what we know about mental health through a language perspective in different cultures. So yeah, from a sustainable climate scene, there are documents, and they get volunteers around the world to translate it into 50 plus languages, I believe, at the moment. Correct me if I'm wrong. They're called climate cardinals, and they write up all the papers that are written by the UN, and they translate it so other people can understand what has been discussed, not just in English. And I think we can do that with mental health, can't we?
Yep.
As well.
Yep. That's part of opening up access, right?
Yeah.
Right. But now it's time for us to move on to the next segment, which is called
Rapid Fires.
Oh my God.
So in this segment, I'm going to ask my guests biased questions or sayings that they have got asked or like have heard at some point in their life. And in this segment, we're specifically talking about maybe biased questions, sayings that people have about mental health. So, Heinok,
Yeah.
are you ready
Yeah.
to address all of them?
Hit me with your best shot.
I'm sure you're very experienced in talking about these by now.
I hope so.
And first question, isn't focusing on mental health just a privilege for people who have time and money?
I think everybody has the right to take care of their own mental health. It's not just a time and money thing. It's a choice, I would say. Like, it's willingness to come from you. If you feel you need the help, do know there is the support out there, and that it is your life and it is your health at the end of the day. So there's nothing to be ashamed of, and it's not a luxury. It should be a necessity. It's essential that we reframe our mindset to have that.
Yeah. And I also do think maybe the infrastructure of the society should design these services to sound more than luxury.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, you just asked, like, what are other cultures or countries doing, and why are we not implementing into workplaces or like into basic human rights that, you know, we should be able to take care of our own mental health because we deserve to take care of our own mental health.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the next one, therapy is only for people with mental illnesses or sickness, right?
No. So people go through things that are different to their daily lives, or they might not be able to fully understand things that are happening to them, and they want a little bit of guidance and support. So by going to therapy or other mental health professionals, you're getting guidance to better understand yourself, but to better understand the emotions that may feel foreign to you, or you're just building a toolbox. So it can be also for maintenance. It's not just to fix an illness or to fix a disease. It's there for anybody who wants it, really, or needs it. And it's how we see it as well. I think therapy, I see it as my therapist kind of being my GPS, and I'm driving the car and they give me a little guidance how to find my direction through life. Yeah.
I like that analogy.
Thank you. I really try to use that a lot.
And next up, do you feel better after talking about it?
Oof. That's not exactly what everybody will feel. I don't think it's a closed question, number one. I think when we talk about mental health, open questions can be helpful, because you're giving space to people to digest and share perhaps their feelings that they have not fully, partially, or fully have processed. So people may not feel better when they talk about it. They may feel there's more clarity, or they may feel more confused. So by asking, do you feel better, you're really closing the answers that the people can give as yes or no, and it may actually make them feel worse. So it can backfire from time to time. So a better question would be, how are you feeling, if you want to talk about it. Yeah.
Because I guess that question, do you feel better, it's framing, feeling better is the only option, or is the only result from maybe talking about the problems, right? And a lot of times it does not work that way, and it might actually trigger the person to feel that, oh, am I supposed to feel better? Like, why do I not feel better? And the person might start feeling bad about not feeling better.
Yeah, exactly.
And next up, everyone has those problems. Ooh, why can't you just suck it up and carry on with it?
Yeah, I've gotten this many times. It's like, suck it up, do the work, don't share your problems, don't want to hear it.
It's like, you kids can't do hot shit.
Yeah, it's like, why are you so soft, right?
Yeah.
No, I honestly think there's softness, but there's also strength and vulnerability. I think it's a silent strength that a lot of people don't see and acknowledge. And everyone's experience in life is different. Nobody does the same life, like everybody leads their own. And of course, yes, you have different priorities or responsibilities in life, but you can't frame your own as the same as someone else's. You can't project that onto someone else. So also, it's very not helpful to say, suck it up and carry on. It's like, don't keep calm and carry on, So not helpful at all. And again, not curious and it's super judgmental. So I think, when it comes to these conversations, why are we not having conversations where we're really curious and we want to hear, rather than us interjecting our opinions and thoughts when it might not be the same for someone else and their lived experience?
No, we never know what other people are going through. So I think not passing that judgment and be more empathetic will always be the way to go.
Yeah, for sure.
And next question, you've worked so hard for so long, why are you giving up now? We need context for this one.
Okay, context. Okay, guys. So I've done dentistry I studied dentistry for 6 years, right? And then so when I wasn't working 6 days, that was already like, why are you not working 6 days? So I think, one, that's judgment, and that's, oh, you're going against the norm. And there's nothing wrong, it's just a different way of going about it, right? And then I took a break in the middle as well. I did not pursue my further training. And then I started working part-time, and I mean, I teach yoga as well. So that's already very not common. It's very uncommon. And I'm very happy where I'm at. Like, I find the balance. And to have those questions where, yo, you've worked so hard, why are you not working harder? Or are you really a dentist? Can you do that? I didn't know you could do that. I mean, that may come from genuine curiosity. Like, people didn't actually know you could work as a dentist part-time, or you do it self-employed. And it can be hurtful. It really does. But I think it's not giving up. It's choosing what works best for you. It's a choice. And for those who understand, they'll ask questions. They'll want to know. And they'll accept you for who you are. But for those people who think it's wrong or that you're giving up, I think that's more reflection on them.
Yeah.
And their inability to see further and not having that perspective that, hey, it's not your life. They can't control your life. And I think at the end of the day, you're the only person who drives the car. So drive that car.
Exactly. And I mean, sometimes it goes back to that whole like human brain. They just want to reduce the person in front of you to one thing, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because you started off with dentistry, then for people to be like, well, you should be a dentist forever. That's all you are. But I do believe we should have different seasons in life. That there are seasons when you work your ass off for one thing.
Yeah.
And there are seasons for you to maybe sort of open your mind and explore what's out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're in a different age and time that perhaps the older generations were, where they believed, okay, this is stability. These are jobs that we see. I was talking to my mentor about it today, and she was like, you know, we're in a time where, hey, we can work remotely. We can work online. We have AI. We live longer lives. We don't die early because of such good healthcare and technology, and we're ever changing. So because of a longer lifespan, because we have more resources, and perhaps for some or most of us, less responsibilities because our parents may be more self-sufficient and self-supportive, we can have that choice, or maybe we want to change or have multiple jobs. It is so common now to be a slasher, you know, back then that was a term.
It also speaks to the current state of the global economy as well, right? Because I think job security is not the same as what maybe our parents' generation was experiencing. Like, you know, obviously for their generation or the generation before, it would be a lot common for them to have one job until retirement.
Correct.
But I don't think that works very well for younger people these days.
Oh yeah, and you have those Gen Z people who are so hardworking. They feel they have so many responsibilities on their shoulders. Sorry, we did give you a lot of burden. But they're entrepreneurs at like 20, 21, 22 because they utilize the resources. And I think that's something that's commendable. I'm not saying we should jump onto that TikTok train, but I do think, you know, you decide and create the life that you can have, and no one should be able to dictate what's right or wrong because you made those decisions. It's not their life, it's your life, like I said.
I would say that's definitely one of the only benefits or positive things that came out of social media, which is being able to witness and see there are so many different ways to live your life.
Exactly. I mean, yes, on social media you'll see a certain viewpoint. You might not see the whole picture.
Some of them are lies, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, we like to show the happy, the successful, the glamorous things, right? But there are people who are more showing like also like the more vulnerable things, and they're trying to have that more of that human touch or that realism, I guess, behind the film. But yeah, that's a whole new other topic to explore.
The algorithm you're on.
Exactly.
And finally, last question, Heinok. Therapy did not work. I went once and didn't do anything. Why didn't it work?
Oh man, that's the traditional, hey, give me medicine and fix me. It's not fixing, like I said. It's a long-term journey. It is understanding, it is processing. Therapy is a long-term support tool. It's there. I think it's how you see it. I think the way therapy works is if you want to receive it. If you're resistant to the idea from the start, and you're hoping that your therapist, your mental health professional will cure you magically in one sitting. No, it does not work like that. Like you said, it's not just one impact. It's a ripple. It's the waves of the emotions that come from it. It's highs and lows. So therapy is there to help you understand those feelings, or maybe those intense feelings, or the lack of feelings, really. And it's a support, it's a guidance, it's holding your hand, but also training you to feel safe enough to go through life. It's like when you're surfing. I'm going to use that analogy. You have someone who's guiding you, watching you on the board. That's kind of your therapist. And at times you'll build that confidence because you have a toolbox of self-emotional regulating tools to navigate the waves in life so that you're going to stand up on that board. And the therapist doesn't always need to be there, but they're there if you need it. You need them there. So it's not a one-trick pony. It's not a magical cure. It's effort. It's work that you do the inner work. You choose to do it.
Yeah.
And there's just someone there who's trained to help you as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think mental resilience is one of the reasons why people should do therapy, not just when they have like a problem. So it goes back to what you said. You don't have to have a problem or going through crisis to go for therapy. Like sometimes it's about resilience, building that readiness. So you're empowered with the toolbox, language, or have the muscle memory on how to deal with maybe some of the unexpected emergencies.
Yeah, think of it like they're your personal trainer at the gym, but for your brain or your emotion gym. And I think another
So
thing,
true.
yeah, like my therapist would say, she's there to see the blind spots, which usually are very close to me. It's just I can't see it, and they're there to point it out and give me a different perspective. And I think for me, that's what therapy is. It's having an extra pair of eyes to keep you open-minded and to learn more about yourself too.
Love that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for this very educational rapid fires segment.
Thank you for having me on the space and this platform to talk about mental health. We don't always get this opportunity, so thank you for doing that on Proudly Asian.
Oh, thank you. And for us to close out the episode, so we normally have this Proudly Asian playlist on Spotify where we invite our guests and also listeners from around the world to recommend songs that either make them feel proudly Asian, or maybe it's a song created by an Asian artist or band that would deserve a lot more credit. So, Heinok, do you have a song for us?
Yeah, I have a song, but it's in Cantonese. It's called Hoi Fu Tin Hong by Beyond. Very classic band. Very old school. But I think the song itself has a lot of deep meaning, and it really also celebrates individuality and freedom. So I think that's important. It keeps up the spirit of Hong Kong.
Absolutely.
As well. Yeah.
It's one of the classics.
Yeah. Go listen to it if you need it. Isabel will put it
on the playlist.
the Chinese, and you can just copy and paste into the Spotify.
Yes.
Yeah.
And finally, Heinok, one last question for you. What does it mean to be proudly Asian to you?
Ooh. I think it's really going back to your roots. It's being proud and taking in the cultures, whether it's the positive, proud parts of the culture or things that you're hoping the society and the culture will improve on or change. I think we talked about this a lot in our conversation today. To be very honest, I think from the start, when I grew up, I was not very in touch with my culture. I felt I was kind of in a productive bubble. So I think with age, going back to local university and having a family and my partner and friends who are connected to the local culture really kind of brought me down and back into the Hong Kong space. So yes, my Cantonese is still, there's space for improvement, but it's getting there. But I think it's remembering the roots of where you're from and carrying and embodying the culture with you and being proud. I think with age, I'm also starting to appreciate the culture. Like I said, I love food. Food is a love language. So I'm really loving my soups. Like my mom used to get mad at me because I wouldn't drink my soup because I was like 10 minutes. Let me just scroll a little more, type a little more. And my soup would be cold. But now I really crave those soups. I love it. It's great for my skin, you know?
Yeah.
And I think it's appreciating the culture and the intentions behind the culture. So not forgetting those roots. I'll drop the Easter egg here. You've heard it first on Proudly Asian.
Woo!
Tea time. I'm actually leaving Hong Kong. I'm moving to Australia. I'm going to Sydney. So if you're ever there, you can hit me up because I'm going to go study a Master's of Sustainability.
Nice.
So doing a bit of a career shift where I'm hoping one day we will find ways in the governments or in our bigger systems where there are sustainable solutions in healthcare. So I'm going to go back to school, learn the tools. And I think before, like when this idea came about, I was very insistent on leaving Hong Kong and never coming back. But I think in the last year where I've felt stronger connections or I felt more at peace in Hong Kong, and now I'm like romanticizing my day where I'm, you know, when I'm walking and I'm like, oh, nice, the view, or like the fishmongers and the shops. And I feel more connected, I think, to the culture. And I'm going to miss it. But I also want to bring that spirit, the culture, the knowledge I have from Hong Kong to Sydney. And I'll come back. And who knows, maybe I'll come back if the opportunities are right and it's a calling. And I'd like to give back to the Hong Kong community because it's really done so much for me.
Yeah.
And yeah, wherever you are, don't forget that Hong Kong spirit. And I think Hong Kongers and Asians as well, I'm sure other people as well, but we really look out for each other and we're always there for each other. So don't forget that, lean on each other and be kind to each other.
Absolutely. Yeah. Sometimes you have to leave a place to really appreciate, you know, just how beautiful this city is. And I guess we never know. You might be back, you might not be back. But then when you're back, we definitely look forward to seeing maybe Heinok 2.0, 3.0.
I mean, I hope so. I hope we can talk about, Isabel, we need to have those sustainability conversations from our knowledge. From
I would like to hear
fields as well. And who knows, the world is always changing. But the Asian is always inside us, right? So we got to remember that.
And there's the internet, so nothing's stopping you from coming back virtually as well.
Oh yeah. Maybe you can jump on a remote call. You know, that's the new normal now. So
yeah. Ooh, I'm excited for you, Heinok.
Thank you so much.
Well, thanks for dropping by.
Thank you.
That's it for this episode of Proudly Asian. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at proudly.asian for more content. We are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Leave us a 5-star review on wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for tuning in and signing off for now. I'm Isabel Wong.